This is Anarchast. Hey everybody, welcome to another edition of Anarchast, your home for anarchy on the internet. I have another person coming in from the belly of the beast, District of Criminals, Julie Borowski. She's brave enough to live in that region with a lot of very dangerous people, and she works there with an organization called Freedom Works, and she's a YouTube celebrity. She has millions of views on YouTube, and she spreads a lot of libertarian messages via her channel, and she's very popular, so I love to have her on, and we do have her on. And so, Julie, the first question I ask everybody is, how did you become an anarchist?
Well, hi, Jeff. First, thank you for having me on. I might be a little bit different than your normal guest because I do not self-label myself as an anarchist. I prefer the label libertarian. Of course, I know you're going to ask me next, why do you not label yourself as an anarchist? I've read anarcho-capitalist text, literature, Murray Rothbard, all that. I agree with a lot of it. I would love to live in a, society, peaceful capitalist society with, 100% voluntary exchanges. That sounds wonderful to me, but I do have some questions, I'll be honest, about how we get there. And I do have some questions about how exactly some things would work in that society. But I'm honestly a very pessimistic person. I'm a half...
Living in Washington, D.C. might do that to you.
I've always been, though. People think I'm very cheery and happy, but no, I'm very pessimistic. So I wonder, I don't think you could achieve that in my lifetime. So I identify as a libertarian, and I believe what's most effective for me, I'm just speaking on myself, is, reducing the state and getting the state out of people's life as much as possible. So, I advocate for policies like ending the drug war, ending the wars, ending Obamacare, all these other stuff. I think that's more effective for me.
Yeah, and that's great, and that's a question and a comment that I get a lot. I get that quite a bit from people. I say, are you an anarchist? And they say, no, and I say, why? And they say, well, actually, I wish the world was anarchist. I wish it was that way. I totally believe in the concept or the principle, the non-aggression principle. I believe all transactions should be voluntary, but I don't know if it would really work, and that's totally fair. I don't know either. No one knows. We don't really know. When I say that I'm an anarchist, or when other people say they're an anarchist, what I'm sort of assuming are saying is that we believe this would be the best possible way to transact in the world. We don't know how it will work out. We definitely don't know how everything would work. There's absolutely no way to know how the free market would decide, or all kinds of innovations would come out of the free market. So we have no idea how that would happen. That's what's sort of kind of exciting about it, is all the things that could result from it. But it definitely doesn't mean that we believe 100% that if government shut down tomorrow that everything would be perfect and that there'd be no problems whatsoever. Definitely nothing like that. But as far as you label yourself a libertarian, that's great, and I totally agree with you. Reducing government as much as possible is the best way to go, obviously, and I take it all the way to let's get it down to zero and see what happens. But it's definitely not going to happen overnight, and you say you're quite pessimistic. You don't think it's going to happen in your lifetime. I have no idea when it'll happen, but I have seen a lot of great signs, and I think people like yourself are helping to change things through the internet, through spreading these ideas of libertarianism, which are awakening a lot of people.
Yeah, that's cool. I mean, I don't think there's ever going to be a utopian society no matter what. I would love to see just an experimental, ANCAP society and see how it would work out. I would love to see that. I'm not opposed to the idea. Some people think, I'm the enemy or something. No, not at all.
Yeah, no, that's exactly the case too. I wish we could sort of try it as well. These statists don't seem to want to let us try it. There's states everywhere in the world. You could, there's really, I guess you could go to Antarctica. I don't know if anyone really, I think there is some sort of states governing it. Yeah, it's just too cold. But yeah, it's funny because if you do talk to a lot of statists, they'll say that is a utopian idea, and it's totally not a utopian idea. It's just an idea of ways, other ways that things could work without aggression and violence and theft, which is the state. And but they never seem to be open. Like the U.S. government or many governments around the world have all this territory. There's areas where there's not hardly any people at all. Just let us have this one area and just let us try it and then see what happens. But that's sort of a bit of a side thing because I don't think that's going to change a ton either. That would just make the people who live there a lot happier because we would be all happier being in a place where there was no tax, no violent rulers and things like that, and just seeing how it goes. But I think the real way that we get to a better world is just to spread freedom, and that's really what you do. And why don't you tell us a little bit about how you started your YouTube channel, because you've got millions of views, you're very popular, and let us know how that all evolved.
Sure, well, I guess I can start answering like how I became a libertarian since I didn't really answer your anarchy question. So on my dad's side of the family, my family came from Eastern Europe to escape communism. So when I was a little kid, I knew that communism was a bad word. I associated with the left. And on my mom's side of the family, my grandfather was a big influence on me. He never used the word, but looking back, he was very much a libertarian. He worked for the federal government for a while, and because of his experience in the government, it actually made him a libertarian because he realized all the corruption that was going on there. So really, I knew that I hated the left, and I thought at the time, when I was a little kid, that I wanted to be the complete opposite of the left. But I thought that meant being a conservative Republican. So when I was like 12 or 13, George W. Bush came to office, and he was a Republican, so I kind of rallied behind him as a preteen because I thought, this is the opposite of the left, and I excused a lot of what he was doing. I became a neocon. I supported the wars because, the Republican did. I saw things as left versus right. Then when I was about 15, I started to have doubts about a lot of the stuff that Bush was doing, Medicare Part D, No Child Left Behind, the wars. They were not limited government whatsoever. So I started to have doubts, and I came across the word libertarian online in an online forum, and I researched it, and I realized, hey, this actually describes what I am. In 2007, I was 18, and I found out about Ron Paul, and that was a huge thing for me to find out somebody who really shared most of my views. So I guess that's kind of how I became involved in the liberty movement, or whatever you want to call it. In 2011, there was a lot of grassroots supporters making videos for Ron Paul on YouTube. YouTube was dominated by Ron Paul people, so I decided to give it a shot, to promote Ron Paul. I didn't think it was going to go anywhere. I thought I would just make a couple videos about Ron Paul and that would be it. Some people started watching though, and I kept making videos. So I've been making videos for a few years now. My audience I think is really cool, is not just libertarians. It's actually pretty diverse, my audience. So it's really cool. And a lot of people say my videos are kind of crazy, and that's because they are kind of crazy. But I think that's what people like. They like entertaining videos on top of being, informed, and hopefully, it convinces people to become more libertarian.
Yeah, absolutely. And the videos you do are great. And I'd like to see more and more of that. And I've been talking a lot about that, saying to my audience that get out there and just do some videos, do some articles, be off the wall, do interesting things. And I've seen a number of your videos, and you're quite the actress. You doing a lot of interesting things, very creative kind of stuff. And it gets attention, and that's great. And it's also great that you pointed out that your audience isn't just libertarians, because if it is, what's really the point? To me, the point of a lot of this is really to spread these ideas, because if it's just a small faction of us that kind of understand these ideas and all we're doing is talking back and forth and showing videos to each other all day, it's kind of like, well, we're not really changing anything. And I'd like to see some things change in this world. I'd like to see humanity move on to a much better potential that it has without all these chains and without all this government involvement in their lives. But you brought up an interesting point that Ron Paul was what got you into this, and I had a few people ask me to ask you your thoughts on Rand Paul.
Of course they did. I saw that ad. As soon as my name comes up, it comes up Rand Paul, Rand Paul. Here's the thing. We're going to have a president in 2016, whether we like it or not. And I think Rand Paul is the best person with a chance of winning that we have. Now, I'm not saying he's perfect. I'm not saying he's a perfect libertarian. I agree with some things he says. I disagree with some things he says also. I've disagreed with his call for sanctions. I hate sanctions. Like, one thing I disagree with him on. But I think, when you look at the alternatives like Rubio, Hillary Clinton, all these other people, Santorum, I think Rand Paul would be the best. Now, I'm not saying he's perfect. And to be honest, I've kind of moved away from politics. I talked about Rand Paul in a video in 2012, if people still remember. I've kind of realized that really what we should be doing is spreading the message of liberty. We're not going to get any political wins if people are statists, if they're still calling for, big government solutions to everything. So really what I've been doing, especially over the past year with my videos, is trying to convince people about libertarian ideas. I've moved away from politics, I would say.
Yeah, that's great, and I'm with you on a lot of that. As far as people like Rand Paul, I have this hope, this crazy hope, and that's probably totally wrong, but you know how every politician totally lies about what they're going to do.
Yeah.
And you see Rand Paul now, he's sort of saying things like, oh, I don't mind a little war. That's, it's good sometimes to go over and kill some people for no reason. And he's sort of like obviously wooing that sort of that conservative side, that neocon sort of side of things. I'm hoping, this is crazy hope, but, since every politician does lie, every time in history, there's been no politician I know of who's actually said something, like everything they've said they were going to do, they went and did. So maybe he'll get in there and he'll just like start shutting all these things down. Who knows? That'd be great. And I do agree with you. I think he's one of the better ones that is currently running, and that's kind of a sad sort of a state of affairs of how politics is. But there is no perfect person. Even if Ron Paul won, he's not perfect either. There's no perfect person. That's the whole point, is there is no one perfect person to lead us all or to just make all the decisions for us all. We should all be making our own decisions. And even if Ron Paul, I've said this a few times, even if he had won, he would have been assassinated on the first day. That's just what these people do that are running the government there in the U.S. So that's very interesting to hear your points, and I'm glad that we're getting this out there, because there is a lot of misconceptions about you, because you did a video about Rand Paul in 2012, and
Yes.
So it's good that we can get your opinions on that. The other thing I wanted to ask you about, there's this whole feminism thing going on that I don't fully understand. I think you might have more ideas of what's going on, and you can tell me what you think's going on. What's your sort of stance or take on anything to do with feminism?
I've never identified as a feminist. I consider myself to be an everyoneist. I want freedom for everybody. I think when you talk about feminism, people assume you're just talking about freedom for women. I want freedom for men and women too, So I've never identified as a feminist. I disagree with a lot of things that feminists say, especially the left feminist, especially on abortion, things like that. So no, I've never identified as a feminist. I think you can be a libertarian and be a feminist. I will say that, but I'm not one.
I'm not sure what a feminist is, really. That's why I was asking you. What would you describe what feminism is?
That's a good question, because I don't think anyone really knows the answer. The official definition is somebody that wants equality between men and women, and I think everyone would say, well, yeah, of course I want that. But when you dig more into like feminist literature, you realize that's not exactly it. That's just a very, broad definition of it. So I don't like it.
Yeah, it's very strange to me. I'm the same as you. I'd like to see more freedom for all people. I'd like to see everybody treated equally as far as their ability to live free, and that's all I really care. And of course, if a woman's being initiated violence against, I don't like to see that. And same thing with a man, even with animals. But that's a whole other story. But I do eat meat and all that kind of stuff. I don't even want to get into that. Let's free humans first, and then I'll get into the animals. We got a lot of humans to free first. You did bring up one point that is an interesting point, and we should just talk about it and just see what your views are on it, and that is abortion.
Sure. I just made a recent video about abortion. I oppose abortion. I think it violates the non-aggression principle. I think that a fetus is a person. I think the mother and the fetus are two separate bodies. So I think if you do aggress upon a fetus, I think that's wrong. I think you're aggressing upon another person. So I disagree with it.
So you disagree with it, but you wouldn't want to use violent force to stop it, is that correct? Or would you?
No, I'm uncomfortable with using the state to stop abortion because I'm uncomfortable with how it would work in real life. I know friends that were born in countries where abortion was illegal, and they say that abortion was just as common. It just happens, in the back alleys with sketchy doctors. So I think if you really want to reduce abortion, then you focus on the demand for it. You teach people why it's wrong, and I also think you promote alternatives like adoption.
Yeah, I agree. So yeah, any sort of solution that you think would help the situation that is nonviolent is definitely the right way to go, in my opinion. I think violence solves nothing. My own personal views on abortion, I don't think about it too much. I'm mostly focused on people I can see and hear right in front of me right now. But if you force me to comment on it, I would probably lean more to it is their own body and they can do whatever they want with it, and that whoever's living inside them at that moment isn't paying rent. It sounds kind of cold. However, to say a non-cold thing, I think any time that there is an abortion that happens, I don't think that's a very good thing at all. I don't think that anyone's happy about it, including the mother. Although I did see this one mother on YouTube or something, you probably saw this, where she was like gleeful and so happy to get an abortion. I thought that was really strange because at the very least I would think there would be some sort of emotional issue to killing something that was, evolving human being inside your own body. I didn't think it was definitely something that should be laughed about.
I do think there's a movement out there to make abortion acceptable. I do feel sympathy for, the 16-year-old girl who's pregnant and the father's not in the picture and she doesn't know what to do. Like, I honestly do. But there's better options like adoption, and I'm very pro birth control. Like, I want birth control to be available over the counter. I want it to be used. I think there's better alternatives than abortion, and we should talk about that, not just try to make it acceptable.
Yeah, and I think that's a fine stance that anyone should have access to anything they want as long as they're not aggressing against others. So that's a very anarchist or libertarian stance. So yeah, I have no problem again with anybody who does anything that's not initiating violence. The sort of hazy area with abortion is that can be construed as violence against a human being, and that's where abortion's always been like the tough issue. And the thing I sort of say about it is similar to yours. Is like, if anything, with this very, very tough issue, and there's going to be always some tough issues in life, is just don't get the government involved in it. It's just not going. The government just brings in violence and things like that. At the very, if you want to get involved, try to change things for the better through not initiating violence, which is what you were talking about. Try to spread the message, and I think also as well, a lot of the abortions that happen are the cause of the state, and I hate to always bring up the state as an excuse for every single thing, but it almost always is a contributing factor, and a big part of abortions for a lot of people is just economics, and so many people have been impoverished through the actions of the state, through the central bank inflation, things like that. If we lived in a world with less government or no government, no central banks for sure, it'd be a much more prosperous world, and there'd be a lot less of these sort of things happening. It'd be a much more peaceful and loving world, in my opinion.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah, so again, people told me that you're going to say some crazy stuff. Not as bad as with Cathy. We had Cathy Reisenwitz on a few weeks ago, and that just evoked this huge, I don't know what, I still don't really understand. I guess I'm not a very conflictory person. I try to avoid conflicts more than anything, and I try to see how we can find ways that people can get along a little bit better. But people were very, there was not a lot, but there was definitely a small segment of the anarchist community that were up in arms that I was going to have Cathy Reisenwitz on Anarchast. It wasn't anywhere near as bad with you. You seem to have quite a few more fans.
There's still haters on the thread, but expected.
Yeah, there's always haters. I think if you're doing anything, you're always going to get some haters. I don't know what it is with some people. They just like to hate. They like to sit in their basement, and if someone's doing something, they'll try to find something they don't like about it and just hate about it. It's like, go do something on your own. Don't worry about it. I was sort of expecting there might be a few things that you said that I might have issue with, but I don't really have any sort of issue with anything you've said. I think you're really into freedom. You want to see the world move towards much more freedom, and you understand that the less violence, the less initiation of violence there is, the better things are.
Yeah, you summed it up nicely.
So, are you into Bitcoin at all? I've been talking about it on almost every episode. We might as well talk about it here.
Bitcoin. I find Bitcoin fascinating. I'm not very good with technology. I know I make YouTube videos, but I'm still not very good with technology. So I feel like when people ask me that, if I gave an answer, people would know that I'm a phony. So I think I'm just going to leave it to the experts like you to talk about Bitcoin. Like, I'm excited about Bitcoin. I think it's cool that money can function without, the central bank, of course, and free market of money. I'm all about that, but I'm definitely not an expert on it.
That's cool. The reason I brought it up is I'll be in Washington next week for Bitcoin in the Beltway conference. I don't know if you have any plans to come by.
I don't know if I'm going to come by, but yeah, it sounds cool.
Yeah, you should come by because you'd be the perfect kind of person to come by because, first of all, it's going to be the most anarchist-style Bitcoin conference I've ever been to. I was talking to the people who are operating it, and I've actually had both of them on Anarchast with Jason King and MK Lords, and they asked me for a title, and I said, well, I made up like a title that I thought they would say no, and it was something along the lines of Bitcoin is the bullet that will destroy the district of criminals or something. And they said, that's perfect. We want like really like out there, out front sort of stuff. Yeah. And I was like, really? Oh, that's awesome. So there's going to be a lot of libertarians there, a lot of anarchists. And because you don't understand Bitcoin very well, you should definitely drop by because it's incredibly exciting. And you don't have to understand the technological parts of it to see why it's so exciting. So I hope you drop by there.
I might do it.
Great. All right. So, is there anything else you'd like to talk about before we promote your YouTube channel and let you promote anything else that you're doing?
No, unless you have any more questions.
No, that's it. So, why don't you let everyone know where they can see your videos and anything else that you do?
Sure. I have a YouTube channel. If you just search Julie Borowski, you'll find it. I have a Facebook, Julie Borowski, and I have a Twitter, Julie Borowski, and yeah, that's where I'm at.
All right. So check her out. She's got a lot of great videos. You might want to or you might not want to get involved in all the commentary about her videos with all manners of different people that I saw on there. It gets very interesting. But yeah, definitely check her out. She does great stuff, and I hope a lot more people do a lot more stuff like Julie. We need to get this out there in all sorts of different ways, and she's been one of them. So I'd like to thank Julie, and this has been Anarchast, your home for anarchy on the internet. Peace, love, and anarchy.
This is Anarchast.